Welcome back to the post game brought to you by Arch City Sports. I'm Nick Yale along with Jeremy Karp, and today we have a new guest with us, also of ArchCitySports.com, Andrew how do you say your last name? Manziara?
Manziara.
Andrew Manziara joining the podcast. He's going to be hopping on for the weeks to come. So we got a little Cardinals action, obviously, Hackgate. We'll get into that. We have a little Blues talk with some trade rumors coming up. We'll tell you the latest in the Rams and what's going on with the Stan Kroenke camp and the move to LA. But first, we're going to start off with the St. Louis Cardinals. Obviously, they lose 2-1 today to the Minnesota Twins. Have only scored 6 runs in the past 4 games. Their offensive struggles are really, really top priority right now. What do you guys think about the Cardinals hitting?
Well, I look at it as, like you said, 6 runs the past few games. It's not so much even that they struggle when it comes to hitting the ball. The struggle comes, last night they had 2 on, nobody out in the top of the ninth. That was their shot to, at the very least, tie the game, if not take a lead. But instead, there was 2 straight strikeouts by Reynolds and I believe Grichuk, and then a ground out by Molina straight to the closer, Glenn Perkins, all of a sudden ended the game. They need to capitalize more on these scoring opportunities, or else they're not going to win these ball games.
Yeah.
It's interesting just with the Adams injury and him going down, someone trying to kind of step up and fill that role. In a way, it's hard to replace Adams' power and his defensive skills at first base. But I think Reynolds is doing, as far as I think, a good job. As best he can do.
I like how he's doing so far.
Yeah.
Well, Holiday's, obviously the injury to Holiday's out, and Rick Hummel talked on CBS Sports this morning about how Mozeliak's probably going to wait until Holiday comes back from his injury. Walden and Lynn come back from their injuries before he goes out and makes a move. He quoted saying that, right now they just need to stay afloat, and I definitely agree with that point because, right now they don't want to jump to make a move that they don't necessarily need to do. Obviously, they need to address the offense, but Holiday's a big part of that offense, and if Hayward starts to come around, he had a home run today, solo shot. But I think it's more getting runners on base in front of these power hitters, these guys that can really drive the ball into the gap. Because players on this team are hitting, it's just they're not all hitting together. They're all hitting at different times.
There's different spurts.
Yachty the other night finally hit a home run, so I think it's just kind of a wait and see what they need to do. They'll definitely have to go out and get a bat because their bench, is extremely thin to this point. Obviously, and like I said, Reynolds is playing well in his substitute position at first base, but now that he's off the bench, they need to get a bat in there that they can bring in late in the game because these outfielders aren't going to do it. Having John Jay as the guy you bring in the 8th inning is not the bat you want coming off the bench.
And it's not even so much that the bench is thin. Like, you got guys like Cosma, Cruz, Borges, but it's not so much that it's thin. Obviously, I do agree that it is not as big as a lot of other teams. It's also that they just lack that one power hitter off the bench. A lot of teams do have that one guy that could come up to the plate, and power the way to help team regain the lead. You don't have that with the Cardinals. Cosma's not that power guy that you need in a clutch situation. Tony Cruz, as talented as he is, and especially learning from one of, if not the best catcher in the game, he's not the power guy you need. So that is why I do agree that they need to get somebody on the team that can really get that power going, or go out and find somebody that can get that power groove going for the Cardinals.
Possible Ryan Howard, Cole Hamels trade?
No, not a chance. I hate everybody saying, "Oh, Alan Craig's going to come to the Cardinals. Ryan Howard's going to come."
Alan Craig's career is going downhill really fast.
Yeah. They would have to send an arm and a leg to Philadelphia if they want to get Ryan Howard and or Cole Hamels. They're just Philadelphia's in a tailspin right now. I don't see them doing a deal with them. I would like to see maybe a deal for Adam Lind from Milwaukee, or maybe an Aramis Ramirez. But the thing that we brought up on a couple weeks ago was that does Milwaukee want to trade it within the division? Obviously, they're going to be sellers at the deadline, but are they going to necessarily trade away their players to their division rival? Obviously, they're out of it, but fans of Milwaukee, don't necessarily want to see the Cardinals succeed. I would see the Cardinals probably going elsewhere, but
and another reason why I don't see the Howard deal working out is because you already have one hit-or-miss guy in Mark Reynolds. And I've stated on the past 2 podcasts that I am a fan of Mark Reynolds. I think he's a great veteran player to have on the team. But he does strike out a lot. just as much as he can hit home runs, he can very well strike out. You don't want that times 2 by adding Ryan Howard to your lineup that needs a good power hitter that can actually balance out what he can do at the plate, not just hit home runs or strike out. He needs to hit home runs and get on base more, which is why I really don't see that Ryan Howard deal that's being swirled all around baseball working out if it were even to come to fruition.
Yeah, it's not like they necessarily either need a 350 hitter to come in here
Right.
and get the job done. Adam Lynn's batting 278. He might not be the player that he used to be out in Toronto. As a versatile player, he's had some injuries. But still, batting, they need to get a batter right around the 300 mark that can come in and provide when these other guys need a rest, day to day. Because
It's a good filling spot.
Yeah, because right now, these guys, their bench. Who do they have on their bench besides? They have John Jay,
Borges.
They have Peter Borges.
They got Cosmo.
They have Pete Cosmo and Tony Cruz.
Right.
They don't really have that infield guy that can come in and go in for each one of those position players. I think Adam Lynn really gives you that. He's shown that he can play all the positions, and Mozeliak isn't going to go out and make a blockbuster deal at the deadline and give up, one of these young arms for a rental player.
Exactly.
He's going to go out and get a guy, that probably none of us have even talked about, that no one's even been throwing around.
Right.
He's going to go out and get a player that
got a good
that hasn't even been on any of the media's radar. He's very good about holding his cards to himself before and not really showing what he's going to do at the trade deadline.
Exactly.
I think that's really interesting too, as you pointed out, because everyone knows the Cardinals are not really hurting right now, but it's a good possibility they really will start to bleed possibly. And when you are that desperate, especially in like a Ryan Howard, Cole Hamels combo trade, like you said, the Phillies are just going to ask for the world.
Yeah, they don't need
as well as
Cole
other
Hamels right
teams.
now.
Yeah.
Of
I would
any
love
team.
the Cardinals to come in and maybe get a player like Edwin Encarnacion on the Blue Jays playing first base. This year his average has kind of dipped lately. He's 235 right now. He's got just about 40 RBIs, 13 home runs. You wouldn't have to give up a lot for him. He's 32 years old. I think he's got 1 or 2 years left in his contract. But just a guy that you can have, again, platooning kind of with Reynolds and making sure that both guys are fresh, provides a little power off the bench more than anything else we have.
Yeah.
But, and like you said, it's kind of someone who's off the radar right now, but maybe Toronto will look to move. Who knows?
Could be. We'll have to wait and see who's going to be sellers and buyers at the deadline. But
Exactly.
moving on to a different topic.
The biggest one.
The biggest one of the day, the Cardinals Hackgate situation. What's your guys' initial response? Mozeliak and DeWitt came out with their comments yesterday. Mozeliak talked to the media. DeWitt issued a statement via print. What is your guys' initial reaction, and what do you think actually is going on here?
Andrew, you want to take this one first?
My initial reaction, and especially taking public relations classes at school, is all it is.
We got an expert here.
All it is a report. That's all.
We have an expert in the building.
But I actually got interviewed by the Kansas City news station.
Hot shot.
Yeah, the other day, and
we talked about that when we were at the Kansas City game.
Oh, did you? And he kind of asked me my thoughts, and it was he's a Royals fan, of course, so he would love to trounce in the Cardinals, but. And I just responded, it's a report. There's reports go on all the time about certain things happening in all sports, not just the MLB. But, I was kind of disappointed to see the Cardinals kind of in that negative limelight rather than just always winning and positive notes and stuff like that. But, like I said, just the initial reaction, I think, was more of a report. It's kind of an eye-opener to think that a kind of prestigious organization like ours could be mixed in with teams conversations such as the Patriots and the Deflategate and the spying scandal on the Rams actually back in the day. So, but I think now that they've done a full investigation, it's come out that they are no way involved, and I think that's just kind of what I felt all along. But I don't know. What do you think, Jeremy?
I think it was interesting. Like when I first woke up the day the report came out, and hearing just the Cardinals in general, of all teams that you could think of involved in a scandal such as this, it would be the Cardinals that were the ones involved. But then I think to myself, such as you did, like, this can't really be it. This report cannot be actually true. I dug into it, and the Cardinals had released a statement a couple days ago saying that they are aware of the investigation into the security breach of the Houston Astros database, and that they're fully cooperating.
Mhm.
One of the brightest news I got out of it all was when it was found that Mozeliak and DeWitt directly had no involvement whatsoever. Because you know how a lot of these scandals somehow can trace back to both the owner and the GM, one or the
Sure.
both. And to know that these guys can still be so trusted and resilient is very positive news for the city. And of course, I think this is as it is to the Patriots of the NFL, it breaks open for all these teams in baseball, all their fan bases, to crack jokes at the Cardinals because of how successful they've been the past 20, 30 years.
Sure.
So, I mean, the jokes have already come out, notably from a lot of Royals fans, as we've seen on social media, but it's in general. But at the same time, I don't really see it to be as big of an issue as the media is going to make of it. Obviously, any type of database breach is an issue. I'm not saying it isn't. But at the same time, it's not like the Cardinals as a whole took care of it. This was an employee working at it.
That's kind of what I look at it is you see a lot of people are out there going to bash the Cardinals, and that's fair. What happened was an issue that is an issue, and Bill DeWitt and John Mozeliak are both responsible for all the employees that work underneath them. However, people that are out there saying that because the Cardinals, officials or whoever it may be, lower level, upper level, what have you, hacking into the Astros has anything to do with the Cardinals' success on the field is absolutely ludicrous. To say that I've seen reports saying that because the Cardinals hacked into the Astros, that their games with the LA Dodgers should be called into question.
That was the worst one I read.
How is the Cardinals hacking into the Astros have anything to do with how Matt Carpenter can hit a Clayton Kershaw breaking ball? How does that correlate? And a lot of people were mad at Bill Plaschke's of the LA Times article about the Cardinals, but I read that as well. But looking back on it, Bill Plaschke's kind of the guy that's more satirical, more of a
you get a lot of humor
of a comical writer. Yeah, so I don't think he was taking himself seriously there. Yeah. But a lot of these writers are saying these kind of things for clickbait. I mean, a lot of these guys get paid for the amount of views that they get. So I understand it's part of their job to maybe write up a story that they don't necessarily agree with, but that
whatever gets them paid.
Yeah, but if you're a fan of the sport, of the game, of any team, I don't understand how you can buy that. I mean, you have to look at it from an outside perspective and unbiased point of view that no matter what your feelings are about the Cardinals, that these two things don't correlate.
I don't know what you're talking about. Anytime I can go into a computer, watch a video guy pitching, I can probably hit that.
You go watch Clayton Kershaw on the big TV. You think you go out there and hit his 95-mile-an-hour fastball?
Oh, sure. I mean, anyone can, right? Yeah, that's why there's so many people in the major leagues,
maybe
right?
they should put you in the All-Star game. Omar Infante's in there, 204 average. I bet you could do better than him.
I'm sure I could. Probably not, though.
I want to figure out who this Royals reporter is. We were discussing about that. What was it? Was it CBS?
Actually,
Channel 4?
I found him. It was
if anybody knows that guy.
KCTV Channel 5, and I was walking around Sporting Park, and he's actually the meteorologist.
Okay.
I watched video online. He was reporting inside the stadium.
This guy knows nothing about what he's talking about.
I believe this was after the game, and he had a microphone and his cameraman, and he approached us and was like, so what do you think of the Cardinals and their moral values? And I kind of responded, well, we won 11 World Series. I think we've got a pretty good start.
They're jealous.
And he was like, that's enough of that.
He's just poking some good fun.
And when people talk about when it comes, and I'm going to make one more comparison to how people react to when the Patriots do something in the NFL, because we've all had those fun moments making fun of them with their scandals. I mean, who wouldn't? But when they've had those issues back as far as when they first won the Super Bowl against the Rams. So people would always say, strip mother rings. The issue with the Cardinals goes back to 2013 when we were in the World Series, but we haven't won the World Series since 2011. So for those people to say strip mother World Series rings is more ludicrous than as deep as this investigation is going to get.
Yeah, true. I mean, and hacking, did they look up hotel information? Did they look up, like you said?
They're staying at the Quality Inn.
Pitching, yeah. The Big La Quinta brand, yeah. Oh, gosh, we should go scout them before they, what are they eating pregame meals at, huh?
That could be important.
Hey, tell you what.
You're listening to the Post Game, brought to you by ArchCitySports.com. As always, you can follow at ArchCitySports on Twitter, ArchCitySports on Facebook. You can follow at Nick Yale, myself on Twitter, or at jcarpsportsfan1 on Twitter. Andrew, what is your Twitter handle?
It is at I'm the Manziera.
Wow, that's really original, really professional for a journalist.
Yep.
Really professional.
Well, I'm not a journalist.
Well, yeah, you're a communications guy.
There you go.
We're going to take a quick break, but after the break, we'll be talking a little Blues, a little Rams, and much more. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the postgame, brought to you by ArchCitySports.com. From the major leagues to the minor leagues, Arch City Sports has you covered all across the area. If you can follow Arch City Sports on Facebook at Arch City Sports or on Twitter at Arch City Sports. So, guys, back at it. We talked a little Cardinals in the first segment. Moving on to some other sports, though, some lesser-known sports. St. Louis Soccer, STLFC, had a game. Was it on Tuesday? It was on Tuesday night.
Tuesday.
Yes, it
Traveled
was.
out to Sporting Kansas City. Lost 1-0 in the fourth round of the U.S. Open Cup. Andrew, you were there with me. What were your thoughts on the game?
I thought it was an amazing experience, not only for the club, but for the fans as well. The Cauldron, I know they got together with one of the local St. Louis supporter groups and hosted them before the game. And I tell you what, the St. Louis supporting section was keeping up, bar none, with the chants and the noise level with the KC Cauldron, which is their support group. And it's just great to see. A lot of people like to, dog St. Louis about not being a soccer town or not a soccer city, whatever. But just it's instances like that where it really shows through and it can really change opinions. Honestly, I mean, there's a lot of momentum going with the club moving forward, and I think that was just a big boost to that. If anything else. So.
Yeah, I was sitting up in the press box, and you could hear the Lugans just as much as you could hear the KC Cauldron. I know the STLFC players appreciate it. I talked to Sam Fink after the game, and he said, to look up there and see that many people screaming over the thousands of KC fans, you want to play for that. And I think that definitely speaks true to St. Louis, and a lot of Kansas City fans, a lot of Sporting fans coming out of that game were saying, that was the loudest of any supporter group they've ever had in that stadium, since they played in that stadium. So I thought that was pretty cool. As far as the game went, though, I think St. Louis came out with a tough attack early on. Mm-hmm. It was really good to see them come out, and I figured they would do that and come out strong in that first half. But Sporting's legs were just too much there at the end, and Graham Zusi had a beautiful head ball for a goal. There's nothing you can do about that. I mean, we talked to Coach after the game. He's talking about how much more athletic, how much high speed, high intensity they are, and you can't really. The thing that stuck out to me was he said you can't really replicate that in practice when your guys aren't up to that level, up to that MLS level. But I definitely think it's a good start, and it was a monumental moment for St. Louis and this club to be able to go out there and play against an MLS team. So
they really held their own. I mean, when St. Louis played Minnesota United, which is a member of the NASL, which is one league above USL, one league below the MLS, it was interesting. I mean, St. Louis won the game in order to play Sporting, and to see that NASL team kind of sit back and give St. Louis the ball and have possession time and things of that nature, it was interesting because, I mean, St. Louis really just took it to them. I mean, they dominated the whole game, and they won it in penalty kicks, but it seemed like Sporting really wasn't aggressive coming out. I mean, they weren't letting them sit back and get shots on goal, obviously, but it was really just neat to see St. Louis, I mean, almost a third-tier team and hold their own and only lose 1-0.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I know it's a loss, but in many ways, I mean, I talked to a lot of the guys today. They were saying how, just what a great experience it was and getting to play in front of that many people. It was so neat. And, I mean, a player like Grant Zusi, who's a member of the U.S. men's national team, not only an MLS player, but a world
very nice
soccer
guy,
star.
too.
Yeah.
Very nice guy.
For him to score the goal, too, it's kind of like, come on now. You're an MLS team. You need your national team member to score your only goal.
I wasn't sure.
Come on.
I wasn't sure if a lot of those guys were going to play. Obviously, they entered in at the fourth round, but it was nice to see that they did play their stars out there in a tough matchup. They're going to be back in action this Friday against Colorado Springs Switchbacks. It's going to be at home at Worldwide Technology Park on Friday, June 19th. Kickoff starts at 7:30. You can get tickets at stlouisfc.com. I encourage everybody to go out there. If you haven't been out for a game yet, the Lulligans get crazy. The atmosphere is unreal. Hopefully the rain stays away. It's been raining nonstop the past week, and it seems like
Mother Nature's
it
not
seems
messing
like
around.
seems like every one of the last home games, there's either been a rain delay, a lightning delay. So hopefully the weather can hold off. So soccer's always good to be back, to have it back in St. Louis. They're doing pretty well, but there's a team that's not doing so well, hasn't been doing so well the past few seasons in the playoffs, and that's the St. Louis Blues. Trade rumors swirling now that the Rangers and Blues could be in a deal to deal T.J. Oshie to the Rangers in exchange for Rick Nash. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Well, I think it would be very interesting, the trade. My friend of mine actually sent me a link to look at the article that had stated that trade. It's on BlueLineStation.com. And I believe, Rick Nash is obviously a very talented player in his own right. And as far as T.J. Oshie goes, he was honestly non-existent throughout this year's playoffs. Past couple seasons he has been. I've stated since the Blues playoff ended against the Wild that before next season, either Oshie or David Backes or both need to be gone. There's really got to be some, and it would hurt people. I understand that, Fans really love these players. They've been staples of the city, of the team for so many years. But believe it or not, sports are also a business, especially in this day and age more than ever. The era where players spend their whole careers with one team, unfortunately, is going away. More deals are working. There's more money involved. The deals are more lucrative. But there comes a time when more than one player has to help a team in order to get far in the playoffs. Vladimir Tarasenko cannot single-handedly lead this team to the Stanley Cup. He needs a supporting cast, whether it be behind the net or on the ice with him. And Oshie, like I stated before, he did not do much at all. Andrew, you had the stats that say how Oshie performed in this year's playoff in comparison to how Tarasenko performed.
TJ Oshie, 2 points, 1 goal and an assist, -3 rating in 6 games.
Yeah, see,
So-
that's not going to get you very far. Especially trying to back up your best player, which has now become Tarasenko. And people will look at him like, oh, he was the Olympic hero. None of us are denying that. None of us are denying what TJ Oshie has accomplished as a player on the ice and as a person off the ice. But the time has come to where we really got to think about getting rid of either him or Backes.
And you got to figure there's no shootouts in playoffs.
Exactly.
It's continual overtime. And, Rick Nash and the Rangers, 14 points in 19 games, 5 goals, 9 assists, +8 rating overall. Is a real, like I said, a team player, 4 penalty minutes in 19 games. That's a guy you want. He's going to stay out of the box.
Yeah.
He's going to skate hard. He's a big, physical guy. He can hit. Even though he was on the Rangers, he recorded at least, looks like 9 hits in the playoffs in 19 games, and that's not counting off the plays, hits like that. But 2 power play goals. He's a leader on the special teams and on the ice.
Thing is, with that, though, is I do agree they do need to get rid of TJ Oshie. Have to get over this whole fan appreciation, favorite player stuff that he had. If Russia never happened, TJ Oshie wouldn't be here anymore. He wouldn't be a St. Louis Blue anymore.
And people outside here wouldn't even know who he is.
Yeah, but looking at TJ Oshie does need to move. But for Rick Nash, TJ Oshie had 19 goals last year. Rick Nash had 42, which was third in the league for goals. The Rangers aren't gonna take TJ Oshie for Rick Nash. So where this trade rumors are coming from, everybody will love to say what they want. Of course, it's so easy to say as a Blues fan, let's give up TJ Oshie for Rick Nash. Yeah, well, what are the Rangers going to say to that? So how much truth there is behind that really concerns me, because I was talking with some people on Twitter earlier this week saying, in my opinion, you could trade TJ Oshie, Brian Elliott, and Patrick Berglund and get literally next to nothing in return, because those 3 players aren't worth anything. Patrick Berglund was terrible. TJ Oshie was terrible in the playoffs. Who's going to want those guys? Their trade value is so low right now. And Brian Elliott himself, the Blues went out and got Martin Brodeur instead of giving Brian Elliott a chance when he was struggling. So what does that say to other teams? That Brian Elliott can't be a starting goaltender? It
shows that you don't have that trust in your player. So why should we?
So their trade value is so low. So how are the Blues going to get anything in return for these guys? That's my big concern, is yes, these guys need to go. Yes, they need to get somebody in return, but who's going to take these guys, and who's going to give give up, their star player. You see Pittsburgh giving up Evgeny Malkin. You see Rangers giving up Rick Nash. Those are teams that are maybe one or two tweaks away from being able to, push through the Stanley Cup. The Rangers have one of the best goalies in the game in Henrik Lundqvist. So they're only a few pieces away that they need to move. The Blues have a problem. They need more offensive scoring at a younger age. And if they go out and get Rick Nash, he's 3 years older than TJ Oshie. They need young guys more like Tarasenko that can work together and really have this chemistry moving forward to make a deep playoff run. And they can't do that with the core of guys they have right now. That's why you saw Barrett Jackman leave already. Mm-hmm. They need to get younger, they need to get faster, and they need to be able to play a different style, a quicker style of game that Ken Hitchcock talked about, not this, pass it around and wait until you get a goal.
Thoughts on Jackman leaving? Or original thoughts?
It was hard to see. I mean, it was hard to see at first because
I knew it was bound to happen.
Yeah, he's been a Blue his entire life since he was drafted. But it's kind of the business of the game. He talked on CBS the other day about, he understands it's a business and that him leaving was going to be, inevitable. So, I mean, it's hard to see him go, but I think it's a move that was the right one to make.
I think that in the case of the Blues, one of their biggest issues, obviously on the ice, their problem is not performing as well in the playoffs as they do in the regular season. But I think one of the other problems is that by the time, like we were just talking about Rick Nash for TJ Oshie, that kind of trade possibility. The issue is when players struggle, obviously their value goes down. And the more they struggle, the lower their value gets. Well, it gets to a point where you want to get rid of these guys, but they've struggled for so long, no team will have them. So they did the best thing. They didn't trade Jackman because his value was getting low. Jackman left. But now you have these problems with still a lot of players, and you don't know what to do with them.
Exactly. Blues have 6 picks coming up in the NHL draft later this month. Do you think a pick could be involved? A type of trade, or do you think the Blues want all 6 of those?
I think anything's up for grabs right now. At this point.
At this point, they are willing to go with anything because, like I've said before, it's playoffs or bust for Ken Hitchcock, and I think that goes the same for the organization. They need some group of players to back up Tarasenko, and if that means either A, using all 6 of those picks to really get a core group locked and loaded for the future, then they'll do that. Or if it means trading a couple picks here and there for other players to make a core group. The bottom line is they are getting a core group ready. They need to at the very least, or else the Blues will continue to do what they've done the past few seasons.
Well, they have a core group already, but it's about that core. Something just doesn't seem to work. And I don't know whether it's someone that we need to have playing with Stastny. I mean, for example, Yaskin had, 13 goals, I believe, for the year, and he played with Stastny. I mean, if Stastny can get that guy goals, put him with a guy like Malkin or Nash
exactly.
I mean, Tarasenko even, him and Tarasenko. And I mean, Stastny did so well in Colorado playing with Landeskog and Duchesne and O'Reilly, and it's like, we need someone to play with Stastny. You can't just have Stastny play with Dmitry Yaskin or Ty Ratty. I mean, those guys are small. I mean, Ratty is fast, but, I mean, is he NHL ready? They keep saying he is, but that's a whole other...
But the results on the ice have to prove it.
Right.
That's the thing.
Yeah. You're listening to Post Game, brought to you by ArchCitySports.com. You have thoughts on what the Blues should do on their trades? Shoot us a comment on our Facebook page or tweet at us at ArchCitySports. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we have a tribute to wrestler Dusty Rhodes, Jeremy's going to do, and much more. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Post Game, brought to you by ArchCitySports.com. From the minor leagues to the major leagues, Arch City Sports has you covered all across the Missouri area. Last segment, we talked a little bit about the Blues. This segment, we're going to move on to talk a little bit about the Rams, some of the draft prospects taken in the MLB draft. But first, Jeremy, you have a tribute to a WWE wrestler that passed away, Dusty Rhodes, earlier, was it last week?
Yes,
Legend.
It was.
Last week. Yes, wrestling legend. I don't know much about the wrestling. That's why we have Jeremy
That's okay.
on the show.
I mean, Dusty Rhodes was an absolute legend, an icon in the business for over 40 years. Words could not do justice the impact he had inside the ring and out. If you're a wrestling fan and you want to see one of his greatest promos, considered one of the greatest promos in wrestling history, go on YouTube and look up the Hard Times promo. What made him special was that he truly connected with the audience, that made them feel like he was on his level. He considered himself the common man, the son of a plumber. His attitude was a working class man, and people loved him for it. And he was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2007 by his sons Dustin Runnels and Cody Runnels. In WWE, they are known as Goldust and Stardust, and they are both following in their father's footsteps, being very highly entertaining and lovable wrestlers. Dusty Rhodes will forever be a part of wrestling, whether his feuds with Ric Flair, Harley Race, people know them, people love them, and they love Dusty, and he will be forever missed. Godspeed, Dusty Rhodes. And gentlemen, we have to keep on going because, as they say, the show must go on. And we like to talk about some local baseball athletes that were drafted by 3 different teams in Major League Baseball, and one of them was the St. Louis Cardinals. We first have the pitcher from CBC, Justin Vierling. He's a 6'4" right-hander who was drafted by the Cardinals, but he declined and instead decides to head back to Notre Dame. But in CBC this past season, he had an 8-0 record, he had a 2.07 ERA, and in just 44 innings, he had 56 strikeouts. He was selected in the 30th round. So first, I want you guys to give me your thoughts on not just his decision to go on, but just him as a pitcher, like his potential in the future.
Well, an 8-0 record definitely shows that he was a dominant pitcher there for CBC. And like you said, he had 2.07 ERA with 56 strikeouts. So he was a dominant pitcher at the high school level. When you look at these guys and their decision whether to go to the MLB straight into the draft or they get drafted, but straight into the minor leagues or go into college, and that's a tough decision because when you're a dominant pitcher like this, if you go into college, you're risking yourself getting injured and then maybe getting drafted at a lower level. Whereas if you enter in right now, you can take in. You can jump right into that. Where was he drafted? You said in the 30th round?
Yep.
So he could end up getting drafted higher in a higher round if he continues to be dominant for Notre Dame on his collegiate level, and therefore then he'd be making more money. But if I'm a pitcher, I always like to see them go into college, get more years of experience because that way they can fine-tune their pitches. They can develop new pitches. Because pitching at the high school level versus pitching at the collegiate level versus pitching at the minor league versus the major league level are all completely different. So by going into college, you allow yourself a couple of years to fine-tune your skills and really freshen up. But at the same time, you're still getting that college experience. I think that's what a lot of guys miss out on is the collegiate experience and being able to do those fun things and experience college in your 20s rather than going straight into the minor leagues. Because who knows how many years it could be until you get into the majors. It could, for some of these guys, it's 5, 6, 7 years. Yeah. Sometimes never. Sometimes these guys spend their entire careers in the minor leagues. Some guys, like Michael Wacha, take 1, 2, 3 years to get there. So it just kind of depends. I definitely would, if I'm a college kid, or if I'm a high school kid rather, in my opinion, for these high school kids, is to go to college. Whether you're risking that, getting injured or not, I don't really think it's that much of a big deal. I think they should definitely go to college.
I mean, a guy who pitches 8-0, 56 strikeouts, like you said, that's a leader. And guys like that really help cement teams together, and whether it's baseball or not. You always like to see guys on your team become leaders and become role models for especially young kids on the team. And for a guy like that to post that kind of record, I wonder if he's eating Ocheos or Wheaties.
I don't know.
Can't be Ocheos, tell you that.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's great. He got drafted, by the Cardinals, and it's great to see local talent get appreciated.
Yeah.
It's great to see, him have the option to go to Notre Dame, whether it's any sort of secondary schooling, but. As you said, I like to see kids go to college too and just get that development and make sure they really kind of cement their future and getting drafted into the show. And I think he'll have a bright future regardless.
And the second player we have actually is junior Jake Henson from St. Louis University. He was actually drafted by the Los Angeles Dodgers in the 21st round. Now, he actually went to Francis House Central, which is my former high school as well, so I actually know him as a person. But he was SLU's top power hitter in 2015. Would you believe that? He hit .327. His slugging percentage was .531 and had a .366 on-base percentage. And Henson also led the team. He had 8 home runs and 46 RBIs. He hit 20 multi-hit games in 2015. After the previous 2 years combined, he only had hit 13. What do you guys? And he's given no decision yet on whether he will return to school or whether he will continue to the pros. But what do you think about his potential, especially in the Dodgers organization?
Well, again, I mean, it doesn't where they go doesn't really determine much for guys at this level. The biggest thing that I'm looking at when it comes to hitters, high school hitters, is they haven't seen the nasty curveballs, the nasty changeup, and that's something you don't really see a whole lot at the collegiate level and much in the minors. Because
they're far and few in between. Really.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at guys in AAA and they'll hit, they'll be able to smack the ball 500 feet, have 20, 25 home run seasons, be able to steal 30 bags, and then come up to the major leagues and they can't hit a changeup.
Yeah.
Major league pitching is an entirely different game than minor leagues, collegiate level, or high school level.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And
totally
so from
agree
that
with
standpoint, you have to really understand that from a hitter's perspective, you have to have good bat speed. You have to have good hips, good hands. There's a lot more that goes into it than just being able to smack the ball a long way. And that's what a lot of guys are able to get away with in high school. They're able to just be home run hitters or power hitters. One, they're using aluminum bat. Two, the pitching isn't that tough. So look for I'm almost saying it's harder for hitters, or for hitting rather, for players to learn hitting than fielding, because it takes so much more time and fundamentals to gather and to learn how to do. That's why there's so many tiers of the minor leagues and collegiate level, because it takes 3, 4, 5 years for guys to learn how to do that. Some guys have the natural talent to be able to hit a 95-mile-an-hour fastball and then hit a curveball that comes in at 85 miles an hour. But for a lot of these guys, especially in the state side, it's a lot harder for them to learn how to hit these different kind of pitches. The guys down in South America, they know how to do this because baseball is literally all they do.
Yeah.
They love to play baseball, and that's all they do 24/7. Whereas a lot of players stateside, Catholic high schools and public high schools here in Missouri, they got tons of other things to do, and baseball is not the only thing that they're playing. Some of these guys are multi-sport athletes.
And being drafted in the 21st round is impressive. I don't mean to make it sound like it's not,
it's the
awesome.
highest on this list that I have.
Yeah, and it's a tough round, because as soon as you get past about 17, 18, it's kind of like, well,
yeah, what rate are these players different?
Exactly.
There's so many rounds in the MLB draft that and it's like,
what did Tate Matheny get drafted last year? Around this, I think.
Tate Matheny did get drafted.
Chose to decline to go to Missouri State, only to get drafted by the Red Sox this year.
Yep.
But like I said, 21st round, that's tough because, as you saw, I mean, he's put up great numbers at SLU. Does one more year kind of add to his total, maybe getting taken and possibly around the 10 to 15th round, and it comes down to as well as money too, because getting drafted obviously earlier in the draft gets you a better contract rather than being in the later rounds. But I do want to touch on, just as you said, the pitching is so much different in each minor league level. I mean, guys in AAA, they can probably hit 90, 93, but they can't pay corners yet. That's why they're in AAA. But, the guys that are in AA, they throw about 88, 89, maybe a decent curveball.
Yeah.
So I think, I think Jay could fit right in and do really well in a single A or double A ball, wherever if he decides to go professional. And the Dodgers, they might need him in a few years after they let go of Matt Kemp and their outfield power hitting struggles as of late. So it'll be an interesting decision.
And we come now to the third and final player on this list, and interestingly enough, he is also an FHC alumni. This one was also drafted by a NL West team. This is Ryan Howard, a sophomore at Mizzou. He was drafted in the 31st round by the Giants, And he was on one of Mizzou's top players this past season. He led in batting average with a 308 average, 69 hits, 97 total bases, and at bats with 224 at bats. He scored 29 runs and drove in 39 more on the season. And a lot of scouts have noticed that he's a very patient player at the plate as well. Now, this is where, when I've talked to a lot of friends and a lot of people, this is his first year as being draft eligible. But a lot of people are wondering, is he going to go accept to the Giants, or will he go back to Mizzou for another year? And obviously, none of us are going to influence his decision. Whatever he does, especially that I know him, we'd support. But at the same time, you wonder what somebody with the mindset of a sophomore college baseball player that just got drafted, what would you guys do if you were in that position?
I don't know, because like I said, with Jake Henson being in the 21st round and getting drafted in the 31st round, I think it's everyone's goal, when you start hitting off the tee at 3 or 4 to make it into the show, and for someone to be drafted and really be at that key time where, do I continue my education? Do I go pro? A lot of guys go pro, and they, like Nick said, they're career minor leaguers, or they can't make it at all, and then they have nothing to fall back on. So, it's tough. And being a sophomore, especially, that really comes into play because you're halfway done with your degree. You're probably over school. I know we are.
Yeah, we're all through that.
Yeah, so I think it'll be tough, especially coming in and being drafted. You're probably not as skilled as the other guys in whatever team they put you on, but as soon as you get in, it's all about you and the work ethic and just putting in the hours that these guys put in and to get better, and when you have a dream of playing in the show, I don't think anything would stop you. So I think if Ryan decides to go pro, I'm sure he'll have a great career, but I think
he's a very talented player.
I think he'll do just fine as well if he stays in college for another year or two, maybe.
Yeah, well, looking at Ryan, he was one of the premier players that helped turn this team around from a year ago. From watching this team last year to watching this team this year, from being down there at the games and talking to these guys, he was one of the key guys that helped get this team back on their winning ways. They were absolutely horrendous last year, terrible. And this year they really turned it around and made a case to be an NCAA a tournament eligible team, although that did not happen. But he was one of the leaders of the team, one of the best hitters on the team, one of the best producers on the team, consistent, patient, all those adjectives that you said from the scouts describing the way he hits. He, not only that, he's a good fielder. He has great fundamentals and was big time for the defense behind some of these Mizzou pitchers. Mizzou pitching was arguably the reason that this team was so much better from this past year to this year, especially having Reggie McClain in there coming over from JUCO. But, Ryan and a lot of these other guys, Jake Ring, don't get enough credit for the consistent hitting that they allowed to do to have the success that Mizzou does. And whichever decision he makes to go play pro or to stay, I think will determine, about what maybe some of these other guys do if they decide to leave Missouri or stay, and what his teammates, want him to do. But obviously it's his decision, and Tim Jamison, head coach, did just get re-signed a 3-year extension, and so this Missouri team's on the uprise. So he has a tough decision to make, but it's one that he'll make with a sound mind, and whatever decision he makes, I'll support him as a Missouri Tiger myself. It's always good to see these guys succeed, and that's what you want for them.
Climb that ladder to their dream.
Yeah, exactly. And then finally moving on to the St. Louis Rams, one team we have not talked about just yet. Some stadium updates, Jeremy, you got for us here.
Well, the training camp is getting closer by the day, and Stan Kroenke, the owner of the Rams, has announced that only 1.5 weeks worth of practices will be open to the public during training camp. Otherwise, there will be joint practices with the Dallas Cowboys in Oxnard in California. And I'm just wondering, how do you think this will affect the possibility of the Rams and their move to Los Angeles? Obviously, they're not moving.
At this point, I don't think we can say much.
Yeah.
Stan Kroenke's going to do whatever he wants with this team, and it's come down to that. And I think, the Rams training camp here, there, London, wherever, I don't think really makes that much of a difference. I hopefully will be able to go out to training camp and see some of these guys and chat with them, and maybe we'll know more here in a few weeks. I think August 11th is the next meeting in Chicago for between all 32 NFL franchises and their owners. So that's kind of when I think we're going to hear a little bit more about what's going to happen with these LA stadium plans and the move and what's going on with the St. Louis stadium plans as well. So until then, I don't think there's really much that we can say. It's just kind of be a crapshoot up until then.
Yeah. Any thoughts by you, Andrew?
Personally, I am surprised Kroenke came out and announced something that wasn't about his stadium plans. But, it's good to see that he's still invested in his team in town. It's good to see that he cares about the fan base because, as you know, he makes very few media appearances. I believe the last real media appearance he made was when we signed Jeff Fisher to a head coaching job. So, but I think it's good. Teams practicing with other teams, it builds...
Gives you a different feeling.
Yeah, it builds some chemistry with your team and kind of that just keeping that competitive level high, and that's hard to do, especially with, just OTAs and either only uppers or no pads, only helmets, stuff like that. So I think it's good to keep it competitive amongst other teams. It builds friendships, among guys in the league. As much as they want to go out and hurt each other, seems like every Sunday. It's nice to see some gamesmanship every once in a while, and especially with as big as the NFL is, I think it's great. It gets more fans involved, kind of creates that bigger fan base of maybe people out in California don't follow the Rams or the Cowboys as much. Now they get a chance to kind of see the players coming up in action. So, but I'm just glad that Les Snead went out and got a quarterback that can hopefully finish a full season. Yeah. I am not a Sam Bradford fan. I'll tell you that.
I bought his jersey. I bought a Sam Bradford
I have a T-shirt jersey.
Sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to hear that.
It was between. It was for my birthday. I was like, do I get a Sam Bradford jersey or do I get a Steven Jackson jersey? Which way do I go? And I was like, Steven Jackson's getting old. I'll get a Sam Bradford jersey. Well, neither one of those decisions would have worked out, as we can see. And my Sam Bradford.
I'd still rather have a Jackson.
It's one of those blue and yellow jerseys. Those old blue and yellow.
School.
So it's officially retro now.
You should have just got a nice $80 car wash or something. That's because you would have spent your money the same way.
I think I only spent $50 on it.
Okay, $50.
Excuse me. It wasn't too bad.
That's a nice trip to the auto spa. All right. I, however, have a Laurinaitis jersey, which that guy.
How do you say his name? Laurinaitis.
James
Laurinaitis. James Laurinaitis. Say it with me, Laurinaitis.
That's your Mizzou accent coming through.
All right.
But yeah, I was a fan of his at Ohio State. He wore number 33. Now he dons the 55. Real commander-in-chief back there.
Ohio State. No Charlie Marlon.
Come on.
Get that. All right, folks. That's going to do it for this episode of the Post Game. For Andrew, for Jeremy, I'm Nick. You can follow all of us on Twitter. You can also follow at Arch City Sports on Twitter and give Arch City Sports a like on Facebook. We will be back next week with a brand new episode